would appreciate that.
Your Honor, my name is Kenneth Feinberg. In the interest of time, I defer to my co-administrator, Ms. Camille Biros, who is in charge of the day-to-day operation of the 5 programs in Pennsylvania, and I think it fair to say is more knowledgeable about all of these programs that we've designed and administered around the country than anybody. So I'll gladly defer to Ms. Biros in the interest of time.
Well, thank you, Senator Baker and members of the committee for this opportunity.
If you could pull your microphone a little bit closer, your voice
Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
As Mr. Feinberg mentioned, we are the administrators of compensation programs implemented in the state of Pennsylvania for 5 Pennsylvania dioceses to resolve and compensate victims of sexual abuse as a minor by clergy of these Pennsylvania dioceses, which include the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and the Diocese of Scranton, Erie, Pittsburgh, and Allentown. In addition to the Pennsylvania programs, Mr. Feinberg and I have implemented similar compensation programs nationwide, including programs in the states of New York, New Jersey, California, and very soon, Colorado. The key elements of these programs are as follows. The programs are independently administered by Mr. Feinberg and myself. There is no second guessing. There is no interference from either the diocese or the oversight committees. Participation in these programs is entirely voluntary. No individual claimant is required to participate in our programs, and only if and when a victim decides to accept the offered compensation is a release required for them to sign. Courtroom rules of evidence and legal defenses which might bar any litigation claim, in particular the statute of limitations, which may preclude successful access to the courts, do not apply. Each claimant can voluntarily request a confidential and private opportunity to be heard by the administrators. I believe we've interviewed approximately 500 individuals at this point for the nationwide programs. All of the programs offer each claimant the access to the individual diocese victims assistance coordinators who will provide referrals for mental health counseling and therapy, and also arrangements for reimbursement of treatment. The programs are entirely confidential on the part of the administrators. However, the victim reserves the right to speak freely about any aspect of their compensation, their particular case, or the process. The programs are efficient, as Judge Stengel mentioned, and cost-effective, between 90 and 120 days to completion of a reviewed claim. Lawyers are welcome, but not required for submission of these claims. We provide pro bono legal assistance for all claimants to have a thorough explanation of the release prior to the victim signing a release of their rights. And I'll just order the following, what I consider key statistics. The number of claims we received in all of the Pennsylvania programs as of September 29th, which is a couple of days ago, 1,255. We've paid out to date for Pennsylvania programs $53,223,000. And nationwide, we've received 2,889 claims and have paid out nationwide $281,773,000. We are happy to answer whatever questions.
Thank you all very much for being here. Judge, I noted that the time frame to submit ended on September 30th. When we scheduled this hearing, I was unaware that that was the date of the ending time frame. Is that something that you will revisit in the future, potentially to open that up for victims down the road? Or, and the other question I have is, what happens to an individual who comes before you that maybe you weren't aware of a perpetrator, that nothing had been filed? How do you handle that type of claim for someone who maybe didn't appear on some list or wasn't someone that you had identified, but that someone else has come forward and presented as a perpetrator?
Sure. At the outset of the program, the committee sent claims packages to all known survivors or victims who had been known to the church and who had reported their circumstances to the Archdiocese. We found probably half of the registrants in the program were people who were, before this program opened, not known to the Archdiocese. Some of those involved allegations against clergy which were not previously known to the Archdiocese. Those were immediately reported to law enforcement. So there's no weighting or differential between people who were previously known to the Archdiocese and people who are new to the process because of this program. Their claims are all handled in the same way. I think in terms of your first question, the closing date, the program opened in November of 18. We set September 30th of 2019 as the closing date. The claims processing will continue for as many months or years as that takes. The sense was that there was a benefit to having a finite time for the program. I am not involved in discussions about whether the program would reopen or be continued. That certainly is an option to the Archdiocese, and I expect we will be consulting with claims administrators and with the Archdiocese about whether that's something they wish to pursue.
Just to get back to your question about newly reported claims versus the known population of victims. So from the outset of the program, as Judge Stengel has mentioned, we had a list of known victims, and we reached out to them immediately. We also allowed, with the date of implementation of the program, we allowed for a registration process. So we said to the public, if you were abused and never before came forward and wish to do so now, please register through our website and give us the basic information. We will get back to you. We will determine an initial eligibility to move forward in the program. And if we determine that you are potentially eligible, we will send you the complete packet of materials to participate in the program. There are a number of claimants who, as I believe you mentioned, Senator, cannot identify decisively who the perpetrator was. So we attempt to work with them to get as much information as they can provide. Sort of a description of their appearance, where they were, how old they were. We're very in touch with the claimants, particularly when they have difficulty, and particularly with the new claim, so that we can assist them in bringing in a valid claim.
And I do want to note that Senator Regan is here. As you have relayed to us about your experience, obviously you are also executing funds in states that have windows. How does that process work when you say a release to sign? So when someone agrees, they sign a release, they're not permitted to use the window, is that correct?
So, that's correct. So the state of New York announced at the end of January, I believe, that the the legislation would pass. Since the end of January, we still are receiving claims for various dioceses in the state of New York. So the individual has the opportunity now to come into the program, to go through the process, to see what the determination is on eligibility and the amount of the offer, and then make a determination. Do I want to accept this and sign a release, or I'm not happy with the compensation offer? Do I want to now move forward and file a lawsuit? So they have an option.
Thank you. Other members, questions? Senator Farnese?
Just a very follow-up real quick. There's reference in the materials to the large volume of claims that were filed in the last 60 days. Do you know how many were filed in the last 60 days?
We believe it or not, we're still counting them because the deadline is that the claim must be postmarked by September 30th. So yesterday we received just under 200 new claims, and the day before 50. So those are not included in these stats. We're still counting and sifting through the volume.
Thank you.
Senator Pittman, followed by Senator Yaw.
Thank you. You mentioned, I believe, your payouts to date were approximately $53 million.
Yes.
Did all of those payouts go directly to the victims, or were some of those dollars used for the administration of the fund?
None were used for the administration. They all went directly to the
How was the fund paid for from an administrative perspective?
from the individual diocese.
Okay, do you have a perspective of roughly the proportion of the administrative cost versus the direct payout of the claims?
No, not as I sit here.
Okay. The reason why I'd asked that, we had heard testimony from the prior panel, which I would like to see follow-up documentation on the claim that Minnesota, approximately 40% of, I believe, the bankruptcy proceedings were tied up in fees and costs related to that process. And I'm just trying to compare that with your operation. So, thank you.
I think Ms. Biros can comment, Senator. I think something like half the people, individuals who come into these programs, come in without lawyers. They are pro se. They file on their own behalf without a lawyer. The other half, roughly, have decided that they will use a lawyer. That's completely up to them individually.
I'm glad you brought that up. How complex is the filing process?
It's actually quite simple. It's a 7 or 8 page application form, which basically asks them personal information, where they live, contact information, and a brief description of what happened to them, when it happened, where it happened.
And do you ever deny claims?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have, I believe our percentage of acceptance is about 89, 90%.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Yaw.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that the panels this morning have pointed out the challenge that we have in trying to satisfy some competing interests here. I know that there are advocates out there, and I understand that their goal is retribution at all costs. It's retribution. And sometimes I get the feeling it would just remove the statute of limitations, the civil statute, and we've done it, and let the court system operate and for the next, 5 or 10 years to resolve it. I am not sure, though, that that's the best thing for victims. And I have talked to people that you're absolutely right. One of your observations is the non-disclosure, that people don't want to relive it for 8 to 10 years or 5 years or whatever it takes, and hire attorneys and do that. And there is that part of it out there that I think that we have to address. One of the things that I would ask you, you don't have a non-disclosure agreement. If they go through your process, they can still talk about it. They can still go to the press, for example.
Absolutely,
They
They can go to the press. They can speak to whomever they wish about it. And I just want to add one thing, if I could. We hear time and time again from the victims that we see that it's not about the money. It is absolutely not about the money. It's the acknowledgement of what was done to them and the harm that was done to them that they're interested in.
What about? I assume there's some kind of a release that if they accept the funds that you provide, then they're given up a right to file a lawsuit.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And everyone who signs a release if they're not represented by counsel, they're provided with a pro bono attorney to go over the release with them and explain to them the legal ramifications of signing a release.
And in the average time from beginning, you said I think is 90 days?
Roughly 90 days.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
accurate.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question. You do not represent the Diocese of Harrisburg. Is that a different process?
not.
So you represent all other dioceses
We don't represent Harrisburg and Greensburg.
and Greensburg? Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. So what is the estimated cost of treatment of the victims, for the victims since you've started, the organization has started? My first question.
What is the estimated cost of
The
their
estimated
treatment?
cost of treatment.
We don't get involved in those issues. Okay. Those are issues that are worked with the individual dioceses in terms of their reimbursement of their care costs.
Is there any availability for ongoing treatment?
Within the diocese? My understanding from the diocese that we work with, that they all make available to the victims ongoing referrals and in many cases reimbursement of costs for these various therapists and counselors.
And finally, do you have any estimation, or you could point us in a direction where there might be an analysis of the difference between the recoveries in litigation versus the recoveries in terms of with your organization? I guess in terms of the amount, that type of thing. I know the timing, you sort of mentioned how long it takes in terms of litigating a case claim with the organization as opposed to full-blown litigation. How about in terms of the recoveries that are the amounts?
Well, I think it's fair to say that recovery amounts in our programs don't match recovery amounts in a successful lawsuit.
You basically are saying they're higher in the lawsuit.
They're higher in a lawsuit,
Thank you.
yes.
But of course, I would just add that, as Ms. Biros just said, a successful lawsuit, and how long it takes to litigate, whether the uncertainty, whether you'll prevail at the end of that litigation, whether the diocese will be able to pay the judgment. I mean, those are all, considerations that I think lawyers and clients factor into decisions as to how to go forward.
And just to add one more point, the level of support and corroboration that we require is significantly different than what's required in a lawsuit.
If I could just add, Senator, there's no burden of proof at work here. There's no motions practice. And in 28 years of sitting as a civil and criminal trial judge, to follow up on Mr. Feinberg's point, there is a marked difference between a successful lawsuit and an unsuccessful lawsuit. In our civil justice system, many cases result in defense verdicts for all kinds of reasons. In this case, the emphasis is on identifying the loss and coming up with a fair and adequate compensation payment.
I agree with you, Judge. I just don't know in this context if there is such a thing as a successful lawsuit for these victims. But
I think
thank
that's
you
a
for
great point. If I could also add, you asked something about ongoing therapeutic treatment. The Archdiocese, through 2 different offices, has spent over the years $13 million to support victims' therapeutic needs. That was before this program was implemented and continues through today.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no further questions, we'd like to thank you for your
Very much.
participation.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
appreciate your being here. And as additional information becomes known, if you could share it with us, we would certainly
Thank you,
welcome
Madam
that.
Chairman.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Our final panel before we break for a short lunch break is Suzanne V. Estrella, Esquire, the legal director of the Pennsylvania